Hey, Cancer Warriors. My name is Tanya Balarjan, and this is Power Pantaloons podcast. Today we have with us Terry Lohrbeer.
Lohrbeer.
Lohrbeer. Okay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So I understand that you have survived cancer.
Absolutely. I'm a cancer survivor, and my husband is as well, which is really crazy, right?
Well,
He
if you're
had
going to look,
he had it first, and then I had it within a couple of years after him.
not surprising though, if you look at the current statistic according to the American Cancer Society, one in two will have some kind of cancer before they die.
Isn't that crazy?
It's
Crazy, but yeah, but
the
he had
number is not,
breast cancer, which not everybody knows that there's a lot of men that get breast cancer.
yeah. So let's talk about it.
Okay. So his mother had breast cancer twice. So, and she was a nurse. She always told him, just because you're male doesn't mean you can't get it. Excuse me. So he was always checking himself. And long after she died, he was feeling his breast and he felt just a tiny, tiny little lump. And he went to his family doctor, and the family doctor could feel, and he goes, "Oh, let's just watch it for a while. It's probably just a cyst." And he goes, "Oh no, we are not watching this. I want a biopsy." And the doctor goes, "Well, if you insist," like really nasty, like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you think this is, but it's probably not cancer. Well, they did a biopsy. It was cancer. It was a very aggressive cancer. So from the time that he had the appointment till he had the biopsy, it had already doubled in size. So they went ahead and he just had a full mastectomy, just like women did. He probably didn't need it because they found it so early, but he just didn't want to have to worry about it coming back. So he did a full mastectomy and chemo, lost all his hair, the whole 5 yards of it. But he's been good since then. And I think he's cancer free 7 or 8 years now.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is good because his mother got it once and then 7 years later, the other breast. So, of course, he's always hyper, watching it, making sure. But so far, it was just the one breast and he's good. But our kids now have the BRCA gene because of him. I mean, there's no breast cancer in my family. There's lymphoma, like I had, but no breast cancer. So, but now my three daughters have to be really careful, and my son have to be careful because of the BRCA2 gene. They're constantly being checked, constantly.
Well, which is good. You should be, right?
Yes.
Like I, I had my annual gynecology check a week ago, and when we're done with this recording, I'm going to go get my booby squished. It is super important to do
Right.
your checkups, especially if you have family um
Family
genetic.
history.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
However, even if you don't, you still have to be careful because 5 to 8% is genetic. The rest of it is toxic and environment. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think mine, it was the environment. Now, that being said, lymphoma is, my brother died of it. He had just turned 40 when he passed away. And that was the early 90s when they didn't have, there's another drug they added to the whole mix of the chemo that made a world of difference. Like now, lymphoma is like 95% curable. It's really, really high. But when he did it, they weren't giving that other drug. So he wound up passing away from lymphoma. And then my grandmother died in her 90s, and I'm pretty sure she had lymphoma too. But she didn't get treated because she was in her 90s. She goes, whatever it takes me, it takes me. I'm fine. So my side of the family seems to be lymphoma, but my husband's side is breast cancer. But I really do think there's, both of ours came more from toxins than anything else, but it goes to the weakest part of your body. So for me, it was the lymph system. For him, it's the breast.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
do you,
this world is full of toxins. Everything we eat, everything we drink, the air we breathe, the water, everything has toxins today.
yeah, yeah. And now they're genetically making meat.
Oh yeah,
What?
I'm not touching that. That's not for me. Nope, nope.
That's a hard pass for me as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
not doing that.
Uh, if it means I have to go to the farmer and watch him butcher the cow, that's
Right.
where we're at this point because I can't with that. Like you can't create food out of thin air. That's just not
Oh,
how that works.
no, that was never meant to be. No,
No, it sounds insane. Actually, it just sounds insane.
it does. It is insane, but you know what? People want to make money. They'll figure any way they can to make money. So what are you going to do? You just have to say, no, I'm not doing that.
Exactly, exactly. So, do you want to talk about how you discovered yours? Do you want to
Mhm.
talk about how you
I'll tell you
received
how
it?
I discovered it because I discovered it, not the doctor. Excuse me. I was feeling super, super tired, like taking like an hour and a half nap, which I never would do in the past. So I went to my family doctor. She did blood work. Blood work came back and she goes, "Oh, you're just low in iron. We're going to give you iron. You'll be fine." So I'm on iron for like 3 months. And all of a sudden, I was in bed laying back. And I used to have like this itchy spot on my groin, very itchy. So I was laying back, kind of scratching. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Ooh, wait a second. There's a lump there. Oh my God, there's a lump." So that brought me back to the family doctor. And then, of course, she felt it too. Then we did ultrasound, then we did CAT scans, and it turned out to be, they did a biopsy. So it did turn out to be lymphoma. And the biopsy itself, they took out one of the lymph nodes that was like 7 centimeters. So it was really big. So most of the cancer was in there. And there were only two more little ones that were a little bit enlarged. So I was lucky that way. The liver was enlarged and my spleen were enlarged because they were working so much harder trying to clean things up because of the problems that all of the toxins in my system. So I went on chemo. I was supposed to have 6 treatments. I stopped at 5. I felt like they got it all, mostly because there were only 2 little lymph nodes left. And they had done a PET scan like halfway through and they didn't see any more cancer. So I did like 2 more things of chemo. And then I said, I'm done. I got to get back to work. I don't have time. I'm going back to work. And so I stopped at 5 instead of 6, but I've been cancer free like over 5 years now.
You're a normal citizen again.
What?
So you're a normal citizen again because
I'm a normal citizen again. For
after
now,
you
I
had
mean,
that,
you got to watch. You never know, right?
yeah. But they don't. They're not as hyper vigilant once you
No.
hit that 5 year mark, because as far as they're concerned, you're in remission and you're good to go. And then
Right.
you go back into the normal populace, which is, oh goody, 1 and 2.
Right.
Like,
Exactly. Oh my God.
like
Uh,
they make it sound like it's a big deal, but is it? Like, with a 50% chance of getting it again, is
right.
it? Like,
Right.
I I don't know how I feel about that.
Right. Nope. Not sure at all. But and I did the chemo thing. So of course I lost my hair and I wound up losing my hair over my birthday, my 66th birthday. It started falling out. So that was a lovely birthday present. Um, so I never shaved my head like a lot of women will just shave it off. They want it gone. I just let it fall out. I was still walking every day. So I would put a hat on my head and I had a few straggly little blonde hairs hanging out the back of my neck and I would just go off walking. So, and I kept my eyebrows, which is really cool because you were talking about how you lose all your hair. My eyebrows stayed on. So you really couldn't tell I was a cancer patient if I put a hat on. So I was out walking every day with those three, and I left that hair there for a long time. Finally, I did shave it off, but I left it there for a long time.
Led you to do that? Like, what led you to
I
not
just
shave?
I just wanted to feel like I had my hair as long as I could. So, most of it fell out, but there were still some little stragglies. And I guess I wanted to hold on to that as long as I could. So I did. And then once it got looking too ridiculous, then I guess more toward the fall when I wasn't going to be out walking so much anymore, then I shaved it all off. But when I was out walking, you could, at least I felt like I had some hair back there coming out of the hat.
Yeah, like it's individualized, right? Like it,
It is.
and for me, I was like, okay, so I'm 38 and I've never had a mohawk, so now we're gonna do that. And so I rocked a mohawk for a little while, and then the night before I went in for my first round of chemo, we shaved the rest of the mohawk off. I mean,
Aha.
but like it was tall, like it was tall.
I
Um,
bet. I bet.
we only actually, sprayed it to within an inch of its life one time, right? And there's a picture somewhere. I don't know where that. I should go look for it, right?
Right.
But and then I came home from my chemo, and my chemo was inpatient because of how toxic the chemo drugs were.
Right.
So I was 4 days in the hospital. So
Mm.
after 4 days in the hospital, what's the first thing you do when you get home? Take a
Take a
shower.
shower.
Take a shower. And I had not considered other body hair at
Right.
the time, and I ended up having a meltdown in my shower when I
Ugh.
lost all of my pubic hair in my hand, and I cried for 45 minutes.
You don't think of that. You just don't think of that. Yeah. No.
No, you don't, right? Like even when
No.
they say you're going to lose all your hair, the only hair you think about is the hair on your head.
Right.
And
You don't think of eyebrows either. Like you just think that's going to stay. And for a lot of people, it does, but not everybody.
well, I mean, I got to keep the crappy hair, the underarm hair, the leg hair, the mustache and beard hair, right? Like all the pretty hair went away. Like
Right. Unbelievable. Well, I remember I didn't have to shave my legs as much because most of that was gone. So, and that's still even today, a lot of that hasn't grown back. So, shaving my legs is very easy because there's just a couple little stubble pieces and that's it.
I haven't shaved my legs in decades. I like I can't be bothered. And there's not much hair on it, and it
Yeah.
it probably had something to do with the treatments. One of the most interesting things that I found out about the whole treatment is for 5 years after chemo and radiation cocktail, mosquitoes wouldn't bother me.
Oh,
If we're gonna
wow.
have this, let's have a benefit, right?
Yeah.
And I was enjoying it. I could stand in the middle of a swamp and they wouldn't touch me. And then one day I got bit. I was like, oh, I must not be radioactive anymore.
Wow. Well, you know what happened to me with mosquitoes? That's really funny because right after my hair started falling out, I got an infection. So I had to go into the hospital. They wouldn't let me leave until they figured out what it was so they would know how to treat it. But I had to have a blood transfusion. So they told me they gave me 2 pints from the same person. Now, if they did that, it had to be a guy. It had to be a big guy because they only take out so much at one time. But I never used to get bitten by mosquitoes very often. I was pretty good. My husband would be sitting there, he'd get bitten, I wouldn't. After that damn blood transfusion, now they love me. Now they bite me.
Sweeter now.
Bizarre, huh? I'm like, this is not, yeah.
It
And
is.
that's the one and only transfusion I've ever had to have in my life.
I've not had one, so I don't know anything about it.
Yep. I just, yeah, I guess, I don't know. I was just so low and everything. And I had the infection. So they gave me the blood transfusion, 2 pints. So it was a lot. And they had to drip it in really, really slow. It took hours. But after that, I noticed mosquitoes liked me again. So not fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much about the whole cancer journey that was not fun.
Right.
Once when you got your diagnosis, how was that day for you? How did
Well, I mean, when I went in for the biopsy, I was assuming it wasn't cancer, but they knew it was, I think. So it wasn't until after the biopsy, then they just came out and said, yeah, it is cancer. It's lymphoma. You've got to set up an appointment with a cancer doctor and see what they want to do. But it was family doctor, surgeon, and then I had to pick a um, oncologist to go to.
so when you got they actually told you it was, did you have that whole like Charlie Brown's teacher talking, the womp womp womp? Like, did you like
No, I
fun?
guess, but because my brother had had lymphoma before, so I knew that. And I don't know. I kind of felt like, well, it might be lymphoma, but I'm fine. Like I didn't really take it to heart and go, oh my God, cancer, I might die. I never ever thought I was going to die from it. I always felt like, okay, so it's cancer. I got to deal with it. I'm going to have chemo, but I'll be okay. From day one, I always felt I was going to be okay.
Awesome.
So, but I'm a very positive person. So that might have made a difference. And I had a positive outlook on life and I wanted to live. Now, my brother, on the other hand, he was very depressed when he got cancer. He smoked heavily, he drank a ton of coffee, and he didn't really want to live. He was very depressed. So he died. So he got what he wanted. But so I think the more positive you are going into any kind of a diagnosis like this, you're going to come out better on the end. You have to go in very positive and say, okay, I'm going to do everything possible that I can do, and I'm going to be okay on the other end. Yeah, if you can't think that up front, your chances aren't that great. The people that go in negatively, they have a negative outcome. You've got to be positive up front.
I agree with you. Your mindset sets the tone for the entire experience.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
um, when I went in and I got my diagnosis, my friend, she drove me to the appointment because she knew she was a former RN and she knew what was going down.
Right.
And
And you had no idea, right?
no, I was blindsided. Which is ridiculous, right? Because my body told me, and
Right.
like they had to do a D&C to find my cancer, right? Like, which is kind of ridiculous because when they took out my uterus, it was over 10 pounds of cancer,
I
like,
know.
which is crazy to me that there were no markers in my blood, and it was
That doesn't make sense to me. That's just bizarre that it happened that way.
well,
But
it
it
does
only goes
happen.
to show you how when you know something's wrong, you must keep pushing. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to.
Absolutely, 1,000%. So after the diagnosis, the doctor said you have cancer. I heard Snoopy's teacher, womp 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 womp. I didn't hear nothing else. And my friend just, took down all the rest of the information, drove me back
Good.
to her house, and she sat me down on like I sat on a massage table actually is what happened. And she says to me, she goes, okay, today is the day that you are allowed to be mad at God, scream, cry, be frustrated. Why me? You could do all that nonsense right now, but tomorrow there will be no more of that. And we're gonna wake up and we're gonna kick cancer's ass. And that's what we did. Right.
Good for her. Good for her. She set you off on the right path right away.
Right. Well, I mean, I would have been on that path anyway because I'm very similar to you in
Yeah.
regards to that. Like, um, they didn't give me expiration dates. Well, I wouldn't let them.
Right.
And because I don't think for me that's not something I need to hear, right? And
No,
then
no.
everybody was in alignment, my friend's family and the medical team. I let them, everybody knew there was going to be Reiki, there was going to be aromatherapy, there was going to be crystal singing bowls, there was going to be all this woo woo stuff. But, you look at the woo woo stuff, it's science that hasn't been proven yet, as far
Right.
as I'm concerned. So, like, they're talking about sound frequencies destroying tumors. Well, that doesn't sound so woo now, does it?
No, it really doesn't. Nope. Sound can do a lot, a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So having the right mindset from the beginning
Right.
makes a huge difference.
And when I got my diagnosis, I was never mad at God. I never said, why me? Why me? I said, okay, this is my diagnosis. What am I supposed to learn from this? Obviously, I'm doing something wrong with my diet, or I'm not exercising, or whatever, or these toxins wouldn't have built up in me. So let me take a fresh look and see what I've done and what I need to change. Because if you keep doing the same old stuff and you just go and get your chemo, it's coming back. You've got to change what you were doing. Get rid of toxins that are in your house, that are in your shampoos, that are in your everything, in your foods. You have to get rid of as much as you can. You can't get rid of all of it because it's everywhere, but you do need to get rid of as much as you possibly can.
You make a very valid and important point there. And many of the survivors that I talk to say the exact same thing.
Yep.
You do not fix your trauma, your emotional bullshit. If you don't
Yep.
fix stuff that's going on in your head,
Yep.
in your body, you will end up right back in the same spot if you manage to beat it. We
Exactly. I
all
agree.
have that opinion.
And one other toxin that I had, we talked about this before, was I used to color my hair blonde. It was just a one-step process. I would put it on once a month to color my roots. And then the last 5 months before my diagnosis, when I would put it on, I would get this metallic taste in my mouth. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why am I tasting metal in my mouth when this is on my head? We think it's not going in. We have pores all over our head. So of course it's going into our system. So it just never dawned on me till after I was diagnosed with cancer. And then I'm like, of course, that was a big sign. And I missed it. I missed it. I could have found it maybe earlier, but I missed it. So I stopped using the kind of hair coloring that I had. I never did go back to hair coloring. There are some that are safe, and hair coloring is not toxic for everyone. But if you're getting a metallic taste in your mouth, it's toxic for you. You got to stop it. But once my hair fell out, it came in gray. I'm like, I'm fine with gray hair. I'm a kick ass boomer now. So what do I care?
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah. Speaking of hair dye and treatment and stuff, interestingly enough, after I was finished with my treatment and my hair finally started to grow in, um, I dyed it. I used a permanent dye, black, and it
Black's the
washed.
worst color to put on your hair. The worst
But
as far as
washed.
toxins.
It washed right
It
out.
washed right. Well, see, your
It
hair's
washed.
saying you're not putting that on my head.
So, so for like 5 years after I just all right, well, we're just not going to do it anymore because my hair rejected it, and
Right.
all of the follicles on my head activated at the same time. My hair came in really thick.
Nice.
I, not you say that right. I like to have long hair, but I can't do it. This is about the length that I can have because
Uh,
this is gonna sound ridiculous. When I put my brush through my hair, my
mhm.
wrist hurts. If I'm like, I mean, the
I can
it
see
sounds
that.
ridiculous.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
It just, I mean, it's not as thick as it was right after treatment, but there's still a lot of hair over here, and I just have to keep it short
Yeah.
and sweet, even though I'd like it down to my butt.
Yeah. When mine fell out, it came in curly, and I was so excited because I always wanted curly hair. I was just so excited because my hair was always poker straight. But it only lasted 8 or 9 months and then it went straight. I'm like, darn it. I thought it was going to last. Nope, it didn't. It was
You
like a
know,
tease. We'll give you curly hair for a while and then we're taking it back.
you should have a couple of bonuses when you have to go through the shit sandwich, right? Like,
Should, absolutely. But why didn't that last longer than 8 or 9 months? Didn't even
it's
last a whole year.
yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's all you were allowed to have, Terry.
Yep. Yep.
That's
And I had a friend who had breast cancer years ago. She wound up passing away from it. The breast cancer didn't kill her. The chemo and everything finally did because her liver was just couldn't handle all the drugs anymore. So she died from liver, whatever they call it, psychosis or whatever, cirrhosis, from all
cirrhosis.
the chemo she had. But she lost her hair many times. So it would be curly, then it would be straight, then it would be curly, then it would be, she just never knew what she was going to get, but it was funny. She just went with the flow. It is what it is. I mean, she fought her cancer for a good 15 years before finally, with all the drugs, her liver gave out.
A lot. That's a long time to battle cancer.
Yes.
Really is. Wow.
And it's funny because my mother in law had breast cancer twice, uterine cancer once, and it didn't kill her. She wound up dying at like 77, more from what did she have? She was short of breath, POCD. So she had trouble breathing. And I think in a way she just willed herself to die because her oldest son was dying of throat cancer and she didn't want to get that call. So she just kind of gave up. She thought, I'm dying before him. He's getting the call. I'm not getting the call. I'm not getting that call.
You
And he
know,
did. He wound up dying before he was 50.
yeah,
Yep. So my husband had a brother die and I had a brother die, but he only had one brother. So that was his family. I have five brothers and five sisters. So I lost one to cancer, but I still had four left. So,
a lot
and
of
I
family.
haven't, and I've not lost any other siblings yet. But as I was telling you on the phone the other day, two of my siblings, a brother and a sister, both have gallbladder cancer right now. And it's very, what do you call it? Aggressive, very aggressive. So, I mean, they had surgery to take it out. Now they're getting chemo, then they need radiation, and it's it's a lot. So I'm hoping they make it, but it's a very aggressive cancer in both instances.
Yeah, I hope they make it.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is. Especially when it is a super aggressive
Yeah,
cancer.
and they're older. Like my sister's 74. I think my brother's 69, but they're both older. So it's
Yeah.
when you're younger, you have a little bit more energy to fight it. As you get older, it's much harder.
Yeah. I am kind of grateful that I ended up with it at 38 as opposed to later
Yeah.
because it was just so. I mean, there were days I slept for 20 hours.
Yeah, I was sleeping all the time. I was exhausted all the time. Yep.
I'm
I
telling
did
my
the same.
sister, she
Although
had a.
I was selling real estate and I still worked a little bit. I didn't work a lot, but I had one client that had no idea had cancer. My kids bought me a wig. I plopped the wig on and I went out. She was buying a condo. So I was showing her condos. Then we found one. She bought it. I went to settlement and everything. She had no clue that I had cancer. I thought, I don't want to tell her because then they don't want to bother you. They go, oh, poor Terry, she's sick. She might be sleeping. I'm not going to, I just, I'd be at the getting my chemo and I'd be texting her back and forth.
Yeah,
But I wasn't working full time. It was part time because you're so tired. You really can't do anything full time.
I wasn't working at all. I had about a year off from
Yeah.
work. This 10 months, I think I was, maybe it was a full year. May have been a.
Yeah. Most people need to take time off. But when you're self-employed, what are you going to do? There's no income, there's no disability, and we still needed the money. So I just kept trying to do a little bit. And so I got a little bit of money coming in. It was helpful.
Yeah, that it is brutal. And if you don't have medical insurance, I can't even imagine. Like I
But
was super lucky that I
yeah.
did have a job and short-term disability, and it ended up
Yes.
being long-term disability. They're like,
Yeah.
well, you have to fill out the forms in order to get the disability check. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm obviously going to go back to work. And they're like, we don't know that. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You're gonna deny it anyway. Like I just think you know it. You're just this is just an exercise in stupidity. It really is.
Right.
But I had to do it. And then, short-term disability, they took 4 months before they sent me one check.
Wow. That sucks.
You know, while you're stressing about being sick, now you have to stress about all this other stuff. None of that is helpful.
I know. I know. And you've got a lot of things you're paying copays for and this and that. And yeah, it's tough. It's
I
very
uh
tough.
I was calculating how much the insurance company was paying out, not how
Mhm.
much they were billed, but how much they were paying out. And I stopped calculating when the number crossed $1 million.
Ugh, I don't think
Yep.
they had to pay that much out for me, thank goodness, but still, it was
Well, I
enough.
had all of the inpatient days
Yes, you
because I
did.
had to go inpatient 4 days a month for 6 months.
Oh, yeah. See, mine was all outpatient.
No,
Yeah.
because do you know what rescue drugs are? Have you heard of
No,
rescue drugs?
no.
Rescue drugs are drugs that they give you because the chemotherapy is so toxic. They have to prepare your system
Oh,
to to gentle the and because of how long, so it was 4 hours before, then they did during, and then it was 4 hours after. And because it was an 8-hour process to put the chemo in me, I was there longer than the patient. So I qualified.
right, right.
There's no way I would have been able to get back and forth anyway. Like once that stuff starts happening, you can't think.
No, 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 I mean, my
Yeah.
chemo was pretty easy. Just sitting in the chair and taking it wasn't bad. It was more that I was just always totally exhausted. That was the hardest part. And sometimes you just can't even watch a movie. You're just so exhausted, you can't concentrate on a movie. So you were just laying around all day.
You can't read, you can't eat, you can't.
Nope, nope, nothing.
I I used I used to tease my sister. I'm like, you have a 350-pound cat. Just sort of wander through the house and plop somewhere and just kind of stare at her.
Yep.
Occasionally eat something, occasionally go to the bathroom. I mean, it's just, it's crazy.
Yep. Yep. It is crazy. Oh,
And it's surreal. Like, while I was going through it, because of how aggressive everything was and all, I had like little blinders on. It was like a chemo treatment, lab treatment, blood work, test,
yep.
inpatient,
Scan, PET
outpatient.
scan, this scan, that scan. Oh my God. Yep. Yep.
And while I was going through all of that, I couldn't think about like a time after cancer, right? Like, what would that even be like?
Right.
And I know that, like, with the mindset, I should have been preparing for that. I should have been like, okay, so this is what it's going to look like. This is what I want it to look like. But I
Right.
wasn't there yet, right? But now, 16 years past cancer, there are days. I mean, there got to be months even where I wouldn't realize or remember or think about it. I could actually go months without it. But in the
Right.
beginning, it was every day and all of the pap smears.
Yep. Yep.
Well,
I mean,
you get kind of paranoid, and I literally I had my regular oncologist, I mean gynecologist, and then I had the oncologist, gynecologist, and then there was the radiation gynecologist, and
oh
like
my
I just
gosh.
like so the first year after being released back in the wild, I had 6 pap smears.
Oh
That's
my
how
gosh. Wow.
that was me. That was me because like because I was
You're
just so
paranoid.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And and to this day, sometimes when I go have one of my annual exams, which I do religiously, right?
Mhm.
Um, I still have, yeah, panic attacks and
Yeah.
anxiety about the the whole thing.
Yep.
Uh, I want to make this one point. So like I had heard that if you don't have a cervix, there's no reason to have a pap smear, and that's not true. They don't do it necessarily as often, but you yes,
You
like
still need to go. Yeah.
you still need to go, and um my doctor told me about every 3 years they'll do a pap because of how far away from my, but just because you don't have a cervix does not mean you do not need a pap smear. That is absolutely blatantly incorrect. You still
That's
want to
good
have
information.
the end of the vaginal canal tested because you could still get cancer cells all up in there. So
That makes sense to me. Yep.
yeah, yeah. Like when I heard that, I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I was so shocked by it. So I wanted to put that point out there. Like definitely talking about benefits. You
See? Yep.
talk about advocacy, right? Like when you know something's going on with your body. I This is one of my soapboxes. I talk about this an awful lot.
Because so many doctors want to put women down and go, "Oh, honey, it's nothing. Go home, relax." And a good friend of my daughter's died this past year, and she had been going to doctor after doctor. She felt very bloated and uncomfortable around her abdomen, and she said something's wrong. And I think she was having digestive issues. They kept telling her she's fine, she's fine. So one day she went out to California to visit her daughter, and she had some kind of an episode. They took her to the ER. They said, "Oh, honey, you have cancer." They knew right away, but it was too late at that point. They really said, "There's nothing we can do." So she went home and died like 4 months later.
That's absolute
Sad.
garbage, right? Like it's absolute garbage.
Yep. Yep.
If
I
you're
agree.
not
I would have found other things to do Even if they were all alternative, I would have been doing stuff, but she just kind of gave up. She did. It's a shame.
Well, we're taught to trust the doctor's opinion on everything. We're
Yep.
taught to just accept their diagnosis like it's correct.
Yep.
Well, it's called a medical practice for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
While they are exceedingly educated, it doesn't mean they know everything. They really don't.
They
And if
can't
you
know everything. There's so
no,
much to know. There's so much to know. So if your
no,
body's telling you something's wrong, you just have to keep pushing them.
yes, yes.
And
Not
don't
that
feel bad. And especially women, because they don't want to listen, then find a new doctor. They're not listening, find a new one, try that. You have to just keep going until you get the answer.
1,000% okay to fire your doctor. And to the good
Absolutely.
one. I have fired many doctors
Yep.
because I go in for something, whatever, right? An earache, right? And they want to tell me that I need to lose weight. All right, well, maybe I do need to lose some weight, but that has absolutely nothing to do with why I'm
No,
here. And
no.
a lot of women get that, or they get you're hysterical. Maybe let me give you some
And if you lose some
antidepressant.
weight, the symptoms will go away. They don't go away, they're still there.
No, because it
It's
has nothing to do with the weight.
no,
It has
no.
everything to do with the fact that the provider is overworked and can't be bothered to do his job properly.
Yep, absolutely. I totally agree. Totally agree with that. So you have to stand up for yourself. And if you're not strong enough, find a friend that you can take with you that can help you, because there you might have a friend that can do that for you. My daughter actually went to all my doctor's appointments with me, and she made big spreadsheets for the doctor and said this was her blood work, you know, 3 weeks ago, this was her blood work last week, and blah blah blah. So she was on top of everything and went with me, was asking them a million and one questions, because I'm too tired and I'm not even going to think of what I want to ask. So even when you're going through the chemo and everything, you need an advocate going with you, listening, asking the questions for you.
Absolutely. And if you don't have an advocate, create yourself a medical binder. Put all of your
Yes.
lab works in it, all your tests, all your doctor's appointment, your list of allergies and your medications. You're going to want that anyway because you walk into a new doctor because you have to go see this specialist. You just take it out of your binder and you hand it to them. They make a
Yep.
copy of it, and then you don't have to fill out 800 forms because they're going
Yep.
to ask you the same stupid questions. I mean, not that they're stupid, but like it's always the same questions. And
It's
if
always, yep. Yep. And my
so
daughter made me a binder, so that was great. So again, I was too tired, but she did make a binder and printed out all the blood work and put everything in the binder. It was really very helpful.
right, and then you take notes on what the doctor says,
Yep.
and when you're thinking about the questions, it's never like at the doctor's office. So you write it down on the thing so that when you get in there, you have your list of questions already
Right.
so you can ask them.
Right.
That helped about 50% of the time because I forgot I had the questions in the thing, but like it helped. It helped.
Yes. Yes. It does help, though. You're right.
I definitely, when they talk about the chemo brain, it's something else.
Oh my God. Yes. Oh, yes. It is something else for sure. It's there. It's true.
It's frustrating, you
Yep.
know, and not being able to remember what you had for breakfast. It not being able to remember people
Yeah.
it's super frustrating. Oof,
It was very frustrating.
yeah. How long
Way,
did it take for your
way
fog?
behind me.
How long did it take for your fog to clear?
It's been a while, so I don't remember, but I'm sure at least 8, 9 months till I got back to normal. Because I'm trying to think. May, July, August, September. I think I was getting chemo for about 5 months, because I only got it every third week, and there were supposed to be 6 treatments, but there were 5. Um, so then it took another maybe 3 or 4 months after that to have it chemo brain to clear up, because all those drugs, it takes a while to work out of your system.
Yes, it does. Especially if they're that soluble, right? They stay in your system for a very long time.
Right. And you got much heavier doses of stuff, so probably took you longer to get rid of your toxins. I think mine might have been a little bit later. It wasn't so bad.
Uh, well, I think the mosquito story tells part of that tale, right? It took
Right?
5 years for the mosquitoes to come back. So maybe it really was 5 years for all of that stuff to come out of my body.
Probably
I don't
was.
know.
Yep. Yep.
Like
Probably
that's
was.
that's just my educated guess on it, you know.
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think chemo brain probably lasted all that long, maybe just a tad bit, but you still had toxins in your system. Absolutely. It takes a while to get rid of that.
The constant chemo brain, probably a couple years, right? Once in a while now, I'll be in the middle of the sentence and my brain will just pause, and I'll forget what's coming next, and I'll be like, oh, there's buffering. Just hold on a
See,
second.
that happens to me, but I'm 73, so I just figure, oh, it's old age, whatever.
Yeah,
Could
I'm
be a
in my
little both,
50s somewhere. Just
right?
so weird to say out loud.
Yep.
It really is. All right, Terry, it has been absolutely wonderful having you here. Been a
Thank you.
wonderful
It's been great
conversation.
being a guest. I'm all about sharing whatever I can share because we want this knowledge out there so that other people, like the way my husband was treated, like, oh, you probably don't have cancer. I mean, that's ridiculous. He knew it probably was. So he had to fight to get that biopsy. And there's a lot of people out there that don't know men can get cancer, breast cancer. And a lot of them die from breast cancer because they wait too long because they think that's not breast cancer. Oh, yeah, it can be. So, any kind of a lump in your chest, you need to be proactive and get to the doctor. So, and my husband has to go for mammograms now and he hates it because he's lined up with all the women to get the mammogram for the one breast that's still there.
Well, you actually taught me something. I didn't know that men could have mastectomies. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't
Yep.
know that. So
Yep.
which is,
Because they have all that breast tissue and he did not get reconstructive surgery. The bad part is, let me see if I'm looking at him, it's his right chest that had the cancer, right? Left. And the right, and when men's shirts have the pocket on the right hand side. So he's real flat here. And then this pocket, he sticks his glasses and all this stuff. And so this is sticking out. I said, it's a shame it wasn't the opposite because then you wouldn't even notice that he had a mastectomy.
busting his chops over it. That's funny.
Yeah, because this part's real flat and then the pocket's sticking out with the glasses and whatever else he tries to stick in there. It's really a riot. And then when you have breast cancer, when you go to the doctor, they can't take blood pressure out of the arm for the side of the breast cancer. So you always have to say, ah, not that arm, the other arm. So some nurses don't think to ask men, can we do it on both arms? But my husband knows enough. He goes, nope, not that arm. I had breast cancer. But he's gone into some doctors and they say men don't get breast cancer, doctors and nurses alike. And I'm like, how could they not know that men and women get breast cancer? So that's a really good message to be out there for people because, you know, if you have a husband or a son or someone that has a lump in their breast and they're thinking it's nothing, get them to the doctors fast.
Absolutely.
Yep,
And trust your intuition. Trust what your body is telling you.
absolutely.
There's
Absolutely.
something changed, something new, something's going on.
Yep,
That is the signal that your body is telling you that there's something going on. So
yep.
you need to find out what it is
Right. And don't
immediately.
give up. One doctor doesn't find it, just move on to the next. You just
Yes.
have to keep going until you find a doctor that finds it. Like you took a long time for them to figure out what was wrong with you, but you just kept pushing.
Yes. Absolutely. Which is what you need to do
Yep.
because I knew there was a problem and it
And
needed to be addressed.
that's why you're alive today. We fight for ourselves.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And we help teach other people how to fight for themselves because it's super
Yes.
important to advocate for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, last year I had another cancer scare and I ended up having to go to a basically a blood oncologist. And she's like, well, your blood work is fine. And I looked at her, I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, 15 years ago when I had my cancer, there were no markers in my blood.
Right.
And the look on her face, like it was like I hit her in the head with a 4x4. She was so shocked by that knowledge.
Yeah. See that?
She had no idea. Like if if me having that encounter and me being in there to tell her that
That
it's a
might have
thing,
helped
and that,
lots of other people. Yep. Yep.
exactly, because that's her specialty.
Yep.
And if she's always assuming that the markers are going to be in the blood,
Right.
it saves even one person, me having to go through that uncomfortable mental BS I went through, worried about the fact that I had more cancer. Then that's worth it if it saves that one life.
Absolutely. The other thing I forgot in 2021, they found an enlarged lymph node in my right leg, my right groin area. So they wanted to do a biopsy. I said okay, but now I regret it because I had a hip replacement in 2018. And even my gynecologist, not gynecologist, oncologist said sometimes she sees enlarged lymph nodes when people get hip replacements. So it was on the same side as the hip replacement, but she thought we should do a biopsy anyway, just to make sure. The lymph node was so small, they had to go in and do 2 operations to find it. And then they nicked something. So now I have lymphedema on my right leg, which
Yeah.
means it's 8% bigger than my left. My shoes don't fit. I had to give away most of my shoes. My foot is always swollen and ugly looking. And I really should have said, let's wait. And she should have, there was no reason to try and get it that early. Lymphoma is curable. You don't have to catch it that early. They were just a little bit bigger than they should have been. And if they had to do 2 surgeries to find it and then take it out, we should have waited. We should, and I blame myself as well because normally I would say, well, let's just wait and see. But for some reason I didn't. I thought, well, let's just get it over with. But now I have lymphedema. So in certain cases, it's okay to wait. You've got to always weigh, and there's always the chance of lymphedema when you have any kind of surgery. And lymphedema is not curable, so it's not pleasant. So, thank God I'm older, so it's not as bad. If you're a young woman, you can't put heels on, you can't have any pretty shoes or sandals anymore. It would be a lot more devastating. But for me, it's like, I'm here. Who cares? But my instinct should have said, don't do it, just wait. So weigh things out. And especially with lymphedema, very curable. So even if it had come back, I should have waited till they were bigger, and they never would have gotten bigger. There you go.
It's important to ask questions when you don't know. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
it really is. And if you have the right provider, they're not going to see it as a challenge. They're going to see it as that you really are advocating for yourself. And it's critical to do that. And
Yeah.
sometimes we make mistakes in our
Right.
own, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And the
Yeah,
doctor didn't tell me until afterwards that she sometimes sees enlarged lymph nodes when people have hip replacements. I think if she would have said that to me, I would have said, well, then let's just wait. Let's
yeah,
wait and see if that's really what it is.
right.
But I'd never had a bad experience with surgery before. So I'm not expecting to get lymphedema, but you can get it from any kind of surgery. So I should have waited. And the fact that they had to go in twice, they did. One doctor went in and put a wire through the lymph node because it was so small they couldn't find it. And then the surgeon took me back into the operating room again, and he could follow the wire to take that lymph node out. And it wasn't cancerous. So there you go. After all of that. And then something happened. And you can't blame them because it can happen. And they explain that up front that
Yep.
lymphedema can happen, but it is what it is. But I could have waited and I didn't. So it's my own fault too. I blame myself as well as them.
Yeah. All right, Terry. I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
You're
It was
welcome.
absolutely wonderful to have you.
And thank you so much. I love sharing my story. I think the more stories we share, the better. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Until next time, Cancer Warriors.
Yep.
We'll see
Thank
you.
you.